Can you dig it, sucker? Ooh, yeah! We boo you because you're both a couple of world-class international a-holes.
Welcome to the Faces and Heels podcast. I'm Jack Purcell. This is Lewis Perry. And on top of this heroic-looking guy, we have a superhero influence, high-flying, hard-hitting superhero, the Moonlight Son. Mike Skyros is joining us tonight.
Whoa! Look at that, a superhero. What is he into wrestling too, or is he just a superhero? What's going on?
Just a little bit.
Because
I'm confused.
I'm confused a little bit, Jack.
It's a hybrid, Lewis. We're going to explain it all to you, brother. Mr.
Yes,
Knight.
please.
Yeah, I mean, you know who Mr. Knight is, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, well,
course
wait
I
until you see the Pro Wrestling Grind debut
course I
of Mike
know.
Skyros happening
Just
on
had no
Friday the
idea.
25th. Oh, sorry, I'm talking over.
We're already off to the races with the sound effects. I love it.
Yes, I know. Hey, Mike, how you doing? I'm looking forward to seeing you on Friday night.
Thank you very much.
Wow.
I'm really looking forward to being there. I've been hyped for this show ever since it was announced. So I'm on edge kind of right now, like waiting to get into that specific ring.
Okay. Why that specific ring?
They're a new company,
Mhm.
but I've been following them ever since they got going, and I really like the presentation they're going for. I like the aesthetic. I like the type of matches that they're trying to have. So when I spoke in my promo about I want to specifically be in Pro Wrestling Grind, I specifically want to be in Pro Wrestling Grind. I like everything they're doing.
That's awesome.
Cool.
And if you're on edge, imagine how Rob Killjoy is feeling right now.
I hope he's feeling the pressure. Well, I know Rob a little bit. We've wrestled a few times, like I mentioned in my promo again. But he's been around. I'm sure he doesn't get frazzled too much, but I know that this means a lot to him as well.
Nice. Well, I mean, the Pro Wrestling Grind shows really are unique. Like, not only in the presentation of the product, but when you go to a Pro Wrestling Grind show, and I don't mean this negatively, I just mean, to me, this is the presentation of the shows. You can never look at one particular match and say, that's the main event. That's just not how the shows are booked. It's like usually 8 matches, and there's a number of them that could very easily, depending on how they choose to do it, be the main event. And I've been surprised at every show I've been to.
Yeah, and I think that's just they have an idea. I hate to use the term vision because I think it's overused, but they do have a vision of what they're trying to present as a wrestling product, and I think that just behooves like what they're trying to do.
Now, Mike,
Yeah.
this is your first time at wrestling for Pro Wrestling Grind?
Correct.
And this is going to be my first. Well, we're going in this as virgins because this will be my first time going to a Pro Wrestling Grind show. I was unavailable to go to the past few ones with Jack. So I will be there with Jack on Friday night. So this is going to be great. It's going to be your first time, my first experience at a grind show. I think it's going to be fantastic. So you better put on one hell of a match and you better win because, I mean, I want to be impressed, son. I want to go there and I want to have a blast. So I'll just go there with a big ass sign for you.
Yeah. No, legitimately, I'm definitely trying to make my stamp on it.
Okay. One of the main questions I like to ask, and lately I've been asking this a lot of our guests, your fan base. Yeah. What was the coolest sign? Has anyone brought you a cool sign in the crowd for you to see? What was the coolest sign that you seen for you in the crowd?
So we've had quite a few like fans of Strength Wrestling specifically like to be creative and do up different signs. I have one in my house. It's like a moonbuckle over like the top portion of the sign, and it's got like a nice black and white theme. I wish I could remember like exactly what it says. I don't want to misquote it, but I literally walked up to the dude afterwards and I was like, "Hey, I need that one. I need to take that." And I shoved it in the back seat of my car with all like my t-shirts, my gear, and all that. And it's sitting in a prominent spot in my living room right now. But I've been very
So,
fortunate that group has had like quite a few signs at Test of Strength.
how did that make you feel the first time you walked through that curtain and you were going to the squared circle, and as you were walking through down that aisle and you just happened to look through your peripheral vision and you saw a sign for you? How did that make you feel that first time?
It's extremely flattering. Uh, Especially like the longer I'm in wrestling, I definitely try to appreciate those moments. And the fact that someone would take time to like create something like specifically for me that my wrestling has had like whatever impact on them that they felt compelled to take time out of their own day to do that is awesome. I really appreciate like I've been fortunate to have like signs. I've had a few drawings from fans, like things of that nature, and all the artistic stuff is always super cool for me.
Cool. Jack.
Yeah, well, I have to say, Mike, forgive me if I'm misinformed in any way, but the way I came to know you, and then I got to see you live, and we actually got to talk a little bit at the Blitzkrieg
Yes.
Pro Show, is it feels to me like your presentation of your work in the ring as well as your entrance have really evolved. And you had a
Yeah.
really cool Venom mask on at the Blitzkrieg show when we were in Hartford, Connecticut. And I told my son about it, and I showed him pictures of your match when you fought Aaron Rourke. And he was like, whoa, who's this guy? So like he was super pumped about you, and he wasn't even there to see the match. So he's really psyched to see you live one of these times down the road. But I also have seen some of your more recent gear that seems Moon Knight inspired, which you had told me about. And it's way cool. And I just wanted to know, it seems obvious that you're maybe like a Marvel fan, but I don't want to assume, because I got you here to give us the scoop. Can you tell us about your presentation?
Yeah. So originally, I'll give you the condensed version. The whole Moonlight Son presentation was originally based off of Axl Rose from Guns N' Roses. So at the very beginning, it was very rock and roll. I had a drummer that would follow me around, count me into the matches, sunglasses, all that kind of stuff, jackets. But eventually, as I started progressing, I started to lean more towards the lunar like presentation of it. And when it comes to the gear and all that type of stuff, I looked at Eddie Guerrero specifically. I always thought had cool gear to where he would keep one theme, but he would mix up like the colors and the accents on the gear, but like the themes were very consistent. And being a comic book fan as well, I'm like, well, Moon Knight's my favorite comic book character, legitimately. Comic books are as hot as they've ever been, especially with the Moon Knight show coming out soon on Disney. Why not mix that up? I'm sure there's plenty of people that are into comic books, and if there's anyone that's a Moon Knight fan, they're going to be right with this, and they're definitely the type of people I'm looking to add to my camp. So, being a fan of Moon Knight forever, I was just like, why not mix that into my wrestling?
Yeah, because you've got that mask, like the Mr. Knight mask, right? Is that where that was inspired from?
Absolutely. I think it was the same guy actually. I went on Etsy and I sent him a picture of some comic book covers. Hey, can we do this? And I have one in black. I have one in white. And then when it comes to the Venom mask that you mentioned specifically, I was just bored on the internet. Money was burning a hole in my pocket. I was browsing through some lucha masks. I just like them aesthetically, and I see that I'm like, whoa, that would be a cool entrance. And the idea was only to do it. Test of Strength had a Halloween themed show coming up. The idea of it was to just do a one-off, do the entrance, have some fun, like see how the people responded to it, and it got like a really cool reaction. And a little callback to your question about the signs, there was a sign at the next show that was Venom themed. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to lean into this. And I've been having fun really leaning into the whole Venom thing.
Now, do you use any comic book stuff when you cut a promo? Do you take a phrase or a catchphrase or a quote from a specific comic, graphic novel, or movie and kind of work that into a promo, like a one-liner or something like that?
You know what? When it comes to promos, if I have like a one-liner or like a certain verbiage that I'm trying to get across, I try to let that be situational and come in the moment, because if I think about it too much, or if I go into a promo, I'm like, oh, I want to force like a specific line in there. For me, it just doesn't come off as
Okay.
authentic. I feel like I'm at my best when I draw from what I'm feeling in the moment. So I kind of wing it.
Okay, cool. Cool. Some of your biggest influences, not
Yeah.
comic wise, but wrestling wise. Who are some of your
Yeah.
biggest influences, and who do you
Oh,
study?
yeah, of course. So, in terms of my influence, there's kind of been two parts to it. When I was growing up, I was really into Jeff Hardy and Undertaker were my favorite wrestlers. Their ladder match, specifically from Raw in 2002, was the match that got me interested in professional wrestling. So, as a teenager, those were my guys that I watched. But then, as I started training in wrestling and I grew up a little bit, I just started having different influences. So, the Great Muda is my number one. He's a guy that I think his style is super interesting to watch. He's always doing something that like draws your eye to him. I just like the way he moves around the ring. Ron Simmons is also up there. I was very fortunate to be able to meet and like drive around and spend some time with Ron, and he was super awesome. There we go. I'm glad you had that on tap. That was perfect.
Yeah, Ron's a cool cat. Anyone else?
Yeah, yeah. Sort of the like kind of the no nonsense, like hard hitting, straightforward type of wrestlers. Like Yuji Nagata is one of my favorite. Minoru Suzuki is one of my favorite. I love the Steiner brothers as a tag team. Guys like that. Dan Severn, I got a chance to meet too, and people aren't going to view him as like the greatest technical wrestler, but I really like the intensity and the legitimate nature that he brought to the table. And I'm also, this might not be popular, I'm a really big Lesnar fan. I think he's a guy that
Really?
always is doing something that draws emotion out of people, whether you like to admit it or not. There's a visceral reaction to him either way, and I think that's super important.
All right, cool. Jack.
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember seeing Brock Lesnar for the first time. Uh,
Springfield Civic Center.
yeah, and on the same show, I think it was H2O Ron Waterman, I think it was his name.
Uh-huh.
And both of those guys, I mean, obviously Brock went on to become Brock, but both of those guys had a presence that I agree with you. Like when you saw them, you were like, whoa, I better pay attention. That this guy's gonna
Yeah,
make an impact. He wasn't just another new guy who was touring with the brand. But yeah, I mean, Brock Lesnar, I mean, for me, it's just aggravating when they bring him in and then he goes away and wrestles twice in a year. But when he's in the ring, and even his UFC work was awesome. I mean, he brought pro wrestling to the UFC, and there were all kinds of crazy promos, and I don't know how scripted and how spontaneous it was, but I mean, the guy is an undeniable attraction. I just like to see him more regularly in WWE.
yeah,
One thing you had mentioned was test of strength, and I had actually watched one of your more recent matches in a triple threat, and hard hitting Bobby Ocean was one of your
Ooh.
opponents, and he's a friend of the show. And
yes,
it's funny because when I was thinking about describing your style to someone, I thought about Bobby Ocean, because I think you guys have like a similar kind of like really crisp, hard hitting, especially like the uppercuts, and a lot of your kicks are like really stiff and really just crisp. Is there
Hey,
somebody you
Jack is
find?
talking shit about you. Just to let you know.
I'm-
I almost called him by his real name.
yeah.
Is he somebody that you vibe with? Because it seems like you guys have a lot in common.
Yeah, so Bobby, over the last like 3 years, has been super critical to my career. So I think it is a similar thing to where like we both approach wrestling the same way, and we happen to have really good chemistry in the ring. And Test of Strength, I don't think it's a secret, has been my home base for the last few years now. They're the promotion that has treated me really well, has given me a lot of opportunities to show what I'm about, and I think the fact that Bobby and I both view wrestling as like, let's give them a hard hitting, straightforward contest and just go all out and see who the better man is. And
No pun
ever
intended.
since, and ever since we mixed it up, it's kind of skyrocketed me. He was, in my opinion, I've never been told this directly, but the first time I wrestled him in a singles match was at an event called Training Day 20, and I think I was being tested, and I think that I passed that test. And me and Bobby have been in the ring a ton since then, and he's definitely one of like my most prolific opponents for sure.
Training Day 20. What was the promotion for that?
Test of Strength Wrestling.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right, Jack, continue. I'm looking for something.
Okay, all right. So, I was curious because I don't know about Survival Championship Wrestling very much, but I know that you've also wrestled for them quite a bit. And I wondered, what's the Collar and Elbow Championship? Are you still the champion?
I am. I won the Collar and Elbow Championship in a battle royal back in November for Survival. Survival is a new company that started out of the Albany, Schenectady, New York area, and the Collar and Elbow Championship I really enjoy because the thought process behind it is the wrestler's title basically. I want, and I've talked to the promoter about this as well. I want to put that belt up and test it against like guys like Bobby Ocean that are hard hitting, they're technical, that approach wrestling from a certain slant. And the belt itself is beautiful too. It's I wish I had it with me specifically. It's on display right now at the house, and it's it always like makes it easier to really value the title for me when it's presented like nice. Like when someone goes out of time to get a nice custom championship like that really like it really reminds me what I'm fighting for when I'm in the ring.
Yeah, that's super cool. I mean, and again, it just kind of seems like I'm really super honored to have you here, and especially it just seems like you're red hot right now. Like everything you're doing, like your match at Blitzkrieg against Aaron Rourke was awesome. And again, I just thought your presentation, especially at a video game convention, was super cool. And people like livened up when they saw you, and it was obvious you were one of those guys who could go. And at Pro Wrestling Grind, we talked about it a little bit. I just feel like that company is providing something different than a lot of the other promotions are. And I feel like you fit right in, and your match, I think, is going to be stellar. And I could very easily see being anywhere in the card, including the main event. And I'm really looking forward to it because I think Pro Wrestling Grind is one of those companies that I've said this to Rip before is it's just that they're all in when you walk into the event. They've got.
Excuse me. Did you say that to Rip as you were peeking through his window, or did you say that to him as you were? Now, Jack is stalking. Just to let you know, Mike, Jack is Rip's neighbor, and he's just starts stalking him. So, please elaborate on when you mentioned this to Rip, please. And does he know you mentioned this? Like, are you like whispering this in his ear when you're like creeping around his house? What did you mention this to Rip?
I just wrote it on a piece of paper and slid it under the door. And
I'm pretty sure you did. Okay, continue. Thank you.
He and I messaged quite a bit. And by the way, he's got a really cool T-shirt coming up. You'll have to take a look at, Mike.
Okay.
Cool artwork,
yes.
Lewis. You can see it sometime. But having said that, I just feel like, you walk in there and you just know, like, this company's all in. There's no screwing around. Like, they got a cool custom entrance. That ring is beautiful. Like, really, like, I would say the nicest ring I've ever seen. I'm talking about like WWE, AEW, whatever. It's just a beautiful ring, and it gets your attention when you walk in, and then you see the type of matches they present. And I feel like it looks to me like what they're setting up for is a bunch of guys are now undefeated. They're starting to build up these undefeated streaks, which I imagine you're going to start building up at this next show. And then eventually will lead to a title match because they don't have championships yet. So I'm just thinking, like we're really only like 4 shows in. This is a very young promotion. So I guess the bottom line for me is I just feel like you really fit in. And I just want to suggest something to you because there's a guy who is somewhat in the same region as you wrestle often, like in the New York, Pennsylvania area. And I mentioned to Rip, I wanted to do a dream booking, and I'm just throwing it out there right now. I told him I wanted to see him book Facade. I think you against Facade.
Oh my God.
Stellar.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I can. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And there's a lot to unpack there, but in terms of Grind specifically, I think it helps a lot that they know exactly who they are and who they're trying to be. And that comes across both to the wrestlers and the fans. And there's a big spectrum of promotions out there in terms of like, there are people who put on a promotion. They're like, hey, I've always liked wrestling. I just want to take my money, buy a license, buy a ring, put on a show, put some guy I like on it, and that's cool. But when you go to a place like Grind and they're like, "Hey, we're a team. We're all going to promote this thing in full as a team. We're going to approach the shows as, hey, we are putting on a full presentation. This isn't a thing where we're just going to throw a couple matches announcements up on Facebook. Like, we've been promoting this thing for over a month straight, just full on. And I think the fans are really getting into it. People are taking notice. And we all care. Like, each wrestler cares about the shows they're on. But when you're somewhere that's like full steam ahead like this, you walk out of that curtain ready, like you're shot out of a cannon. It's invigorating. And when it comes to myself, I first of all thank you for noticing like the hard work I've been putting in. It's just a thing where over the last few years, places like Test of Strength, places like Survival, places like Immortal Championship Wrestling, and hopefully Grind coming up, I've tried to find places that I know I can go and I can grow and will give me opportunities, and that have seen the hard work that I'm putting in and have rewarded me for it, that have made me a priority at the promotion. And I think that's super important as a pro wrestler. We all want volume in terms of bookings, but you also have to look at quality. Where can I show up month after month where the fans are going to care and where the promotion's going to give me a shot to get in there with the best guys and show what I'm worth? So I've really taken time to think like, hey, where do I want to be and where can I go that I'll have a chance to grow as a wrestler?
Yeah, because I know that you've been in the ring with some of the guys who wrestle for the Grind, like Jay Freddy, but not only
Yes.
would that be a great match, but you and Travis Huckabee, like I've kind of like always
Yeah.
as a fan, like just kind of dream book when I see someone like you coming into the Grind, I was like, ooh, Logan Black, Travis Huckabee, to be all these incredible matchups.
Yeah, and that's part of the fun of it, like the fact that you can get excited about all these different fantasy type bookings, and no matter like if I get matched up with anyone on the roster, it's fun, it's interesting. There's something to bite into there, because legitimately until they announced the match, I didn't know who I was wrestling, and I'm looking up and down the roster, and as they announce each thing, process of elimination, like, okay, it could be this, it could be that, and when it matched up with Rob, I'm like, oh, we're gonna knock this right out of the park.
So we're gonna have a banger.
Absolutely.
Oh, great! Now I'm certainly looking forward to it. I mean, I have a nonstop wrestling week this week. I mean, starting tomorrow night, I have Thursday night off, Friday night with you, and then I have another show on Saturday night. I am looking forward to nonstop this week. So I'm just gonna, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So I'm definitely looking forward to going to my first, um, my
Pro
first
Wrestling
show.
I promise you, you'll
Yeah,
get your money's worth and then some. It'll be great.
I didn't pay for it. Jack did. Birthday
Oh,
gift.
there you go. His money won't be wasted then. I promise
Well,
that.
and I actually, am I supposed to bring? I'm not even sure, because when I talked to Rip, I wasn't sure. Am I supposed to bring camera equipment anyway, Jack? Did you waste money? I'm not sure what was going on after our last conversation.
Yeah, bring your camera, brother. We're going to try and talk to some people before the show.
Yeah, because I remember Rip and I were talking about it, and he was like, no, definitely, but then life got in the way. So I wasn't sure if he wants me or if I'm going to do it next time. But anyway, I'll
Well,
be there.
I'll hook
This
you up
show
with
or
his
next,
email
yeah,
and we can talk.
yeah, this show or next show, I'm going to be running around doing a lot of on the spot interviews with people. So I
That'll be
expect an
fun.
interview
Yeah,
from you, young man, for sure.
you got it. We'll hook it up. We'll make it happen.
How do you gauge going to each show? Another question I love asking is for your merch. How do you gauge what merch to bring to what venue that you work at? Do you just like throw it in the car,
Sure.
or do you? How do you gauge?
So I have also prioritized lately, like getting different kinds of merch. So I have T-shirts, which I'm wearing my newest one right now. I'll have plenty available. I re-upped on my stock for Pro Wrestling Grind and whatever other shows I'll be at coming up in the future. But one thing I've noticed too is that not everyone, one, necessarily wants a T-shirt, or two, some people just go to the show, they spend their good money there, and they just can't spend $20 on a T-shirt, which I understand.
Oh, yeah, don't
it-
we know it? Don't I know it? Yeah.
yeah. So I've prioritized getting different kinds of merch. So, and I think that's super important as a wrestler to diversify for that reason. And so I have 8x10s, I have stickers, I have trading cards, I have little pins, I have guitar picks, I have a few different pieces of merch. So, and I see people get very creative at the merch table as well. And I think it's super important as a wrestler to just have a wide variety of stuff. And I mean, a little couple little things to give away to the kids too, because ultimately, like, they're some of the most rabid fans, and if they get a little sticker, a little card, or whatever, something like that, they'll remember you.
Forever.
Yeah,
Forever they will remember you. Jack, you have a question.
Yeah, well, I think your merch is awesome, by the way. We talked to a lot of
thank you.
wrestlers about this because, like, my son's 14 and he's really been into like the independent shows. He used to go to the WWE events and kind of just lost interest in it. But the indie shows he's really gotten into. And I remember him saying to me at one of the shows, like this guy, like, how come this guy's just coming out in black shorts and like he just has like one T-shirt at the merch table? Like, shouldn't he just try to make the most of his time? And I was like, dude, super wise. And I feel like
Yeah,
you are obviously tuned into that, and this isn't, you know, your first rodeo, but I think your merch is awesome. I was looking at all the different T-shirts. You're thematic. It's not like you're just kind of shooting in the dark, throwing random stuff out there.
yeah,
It's pretty consistent theme, and it's all really cool stuff. And I love what you're doing. And I think that diversifying that, you know, different price points at your merch
yeah.
table is super smart.
Thank you. And I'm very fortunate too to have a lot of friends that do like graphic design and different kinds of artwork. So I'll go to them with an idea, like a loose idea, and they'll be able to turn it into something really cool. And I, especially as I've gotten more secure in who I am as a wrestler and how I'm presenting myself, it's been easier to do the merch in that direction. And question I wish I had started asking myself earlier in my career that's been helpful lately is what kind of stuff would I want to buy, like legitimately, if I'm
Mhm.
out like at the mall or out getting a bite to eat at a restaurant and I'm wearing like a t-shirt or something like that, like what would I want to wear? And I think it's like important to view it that way. Like we're people like to talk about the business, and it is a business. And I think if you market yourself in a way that people want to wear your stuff, whether it just because it looks cool, whether they're that into your wrestling or not, if they want to wear your stuff that looks cool, that builds up and that snowballs. And I'm really trying to prioritize that.
I can see where you're going there. I mean, through my business, I have one T-shirt that sells more than anything,
Hmm.
but the plain T-shirts just don't sell. But this one T-shirt just like sells constantly. I mean,
Yeah,
you sell like 4 a month. And Jack, you know exactly what T-shirt I'm talking about. It just sells constantly, and it's not even me. It just
yeah.
sells. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Your theme music, where did they come from? What was the inspiration on that? Why did you choose the theme music that you chose?
So I very recently got custom music. So I've always just been into like I've used a couple different themes on the independents. I've used Deftones. I've used an electronic band called Nero. I've used Volbeat, and it's just always been like I like to think of not necessarily a song that I like, even though that's important. I try to think like what I'm trying to present, what I want people to feel when I enter the ring. And that was
Mhm.
super cool when it came to getting custom music because I found this guy named John, and he's done themes for Ring of Honor, he's done themes for Impact, and he was really cool to collaborate with. And I was like, hey, this is my presentation. This is what I'm going for. These are some bands that I think are relevant to that presentation. And I remember one of the specific bands I named was Nightwish, who I'm really into. And I think if anyone knows who Nightwish is, there's a very obvious parallel between them and what the Moonlight Sun is doing. And
Mhm.
he was really able to nail that with his guitar work and with the vocal sample that he used to create the music.
Custom music makes the difference. Um, for my show, if the band that did that show was still together, I would definitely ask them to do something like this for Jack. Uh, because custom music and anything custom sets you apart from the other
Absolutely.
guys.
Yeah.
It will it you always have to reinvent yourself. You always have to up the game and put yourself ahead of the competition. Um, and for one, I mean, you always have to do that because that's what gets you noticed. If you're in a sea of red birds, you got to be a yellow one because you want to
Yes.
stick out, and that custom music will definitely do that for you.
Yeah, it's an investment in yourself too. And
Mhm,
again, going
mhm.
back to the fans notice that type of stuff. They notice who's like going that extra mile in terms of their in-ring work, but also their presentation, as we alluded to before, their merch. Like guys that invest in themselves and take the extra time and resources to make that stuff happen, I think ultimately just come off as like a more legitimate professional wrestler.
Yeah, I mean, you probably think I'm an old guy because it is white hair, but this is hair dye. I just do this to stand out. Isn't that right, Jack?
Yeah, it used to be purple. Yeah, I mean, you're trying different stuff.
He's not kidding. No, seriously, it used to be purple. It was orange,
Yeah.
pink, and purple. So yeah, you have to stand out. So I mean I give you props for sure. The more custom stuff, you're going to stand out. Jack, go ahead. I'm taking this over on you. You go please.
Hey, it's a collaborative process, brother. Well, I mean, because we just talked to Bobby Orlando last week, and we talked to him about the same
Oh,
thing. Like he has that, yeah, what a character. He has
oh,
custom
Yeah.
music too, and I feel like guys like you and him who are really invested in the whole presentation, it makes such a difference. Just like we talked about with Pro Wrestling Grind, you can get in the ring and go, but if your presentation is, I'm not picking on anyone in particular, but just like the black boring trunks and the black boots, to me, it just feels like a missed opportunity because you could be the
Yeah.
best wrestler in the world, but if your presentation is boring, then as an artist, I feel like you failed on that level, no matter how well
Yeah.
you've crafted your in-ring work.
Yeah, and I agree and I think the minimalist aesthetic works for certain people, but I think you also have to be like the only person doing that. Like if you're in a sea of like super colorful characters and you're that guy, I think it stands out so much more. But whole that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, a hard truth that I've had to learn, and I think a lot of my peers have had to learn, is I love the in ring. The in ring is always going to be what I love about professional wrestling, but there's a lot of good wrestlers out there, a lot of really good wrestlers out there. And being like, I'm the good wrestler guy, there are literally thousands of them at that point. You can, and if you're as good as Bryan Danielson or Kenny Omega or AJ Styles, et cetera, yes, you're
you,
going to
you,
stand
you,
out on that level,
you
but there
you
needs
had
to
me
be
at the
something
first.
more to you.
You had me at the last two. The first one you lost me. Not a
Hey,
Danielson fan.
everyone has their taste. I think he's phenomenal. I've been a fan of his for a while, ever since he wrestled. Ever since I saw him against like Nigel McGuinness, he's A plus for me. But I think like again though, you have to find what stands out. I think Bobby's a good example. He's been a good wrestler for a while, but like for lack of a better term, ever since he started being like just really kind of weird, he's really taken off and people remember him. Like kids and like families really connect to him from what I've seen. So as long as he keeps doing that weird stuff, I think it'll benefit him.
um, we had so many messages when Bobby was on, because he was live, not
Yeah,
pre-recorded as your interview. I couldn't even
yeah,
keep up with the comments. It was just simply hilarious.
yeah.
What's the worst altercation you had with a fan?
With a fan, I've actually been very fortunate. I haven't had anything physical with fans. Like there have been times where I've been at a show and we'll bark back and forth a little bit. But the funny thing about that is you'll be in the ring or you'll be doing your entrance, you'll be barking at a fan, you'll be blah blah blah, like swearing at them, whatever, and they're the first person to come up to your merch table and be like, "Oh, that was so much fun. I really enjoy. I respect what you're doing." Like all that kind of stuff, and like completely like disarm themselves, which is fine. Like if you want to yell and be a part of the show, I'm cool. I can riff right back. That comes with the territory. But yeah, I've been fortunate. I was in the ring for one. I was in a match at NFW, and this was at the H2L building in New Jersey, and it was myself, Rick Recon, Keenan Moore, and the natural Nick Sullivan. Nick is a very good mine, he has a way of antagonizing fans that is very effective. And I've seen him get into like 3 or 4 like physical altercation where fans have like tried to jump the rail and go after him. And this was one of those. He was yelling back and forth at a fan, and the fan said something, something, your mother, and he said something, something, your mother. And they had to be physically separated. And I was standing in the ring like, what do we do now? And I literally ran up and I grabbed him in a headlock, and we kind of started the match. So that was a really fun experience. And I was told that there were a couple people at the monitor waiting to have things pop off with Mick and the Span. And when I grabbed him in the headlock, I got a pretty good reaction backstage. So luckily nothing like that for me, though.
All right, cool. Besides the sign that you went and asked, what was the coolest interaction with a fan that you ever had?
Oh, man. So there is this dude up in Ottawa. He is a fan. I know him from my days wrestling at 2CW in Syracuse, but he's big at C4 wrestling in Ottawa, where you've seen like Kevin Steen, Josh Alexander, Sami Zayn, etc. come from. And what he'll do is he'll do artwork for the guys, and he has like this really cool, like a little bit like a cartoon, like comic style approach to it. And because me and him have been super cool for a long time, and I've always wanted that drawing. Like I've wanted that validation. Like I was one of the dudes that got the drawing, and I didn't want to ask him though. I wanted him to like do it on his own accord. So when I got that for the first time and I arrived and he handed it to me, that was super cool. His name's Matty. He's a bunch of people that wrestle in that area know who he is. And that was flattering is an understatement in my opinion.
All right. Jack, question.
So you're from the Syracuse, New York area. Is that right,
Yes.
Mike?
Correct.
Did you train in Syracuse or were you
Yes.
somewhere else? Yeah. Who did you train with?
So I've been at the same school. I'm still at the same school to this day. It is called the Institute of Pro Wrestling. The head trainer is Zachary Springate III. The assistant trainer is IceFX, who is still active to this day. I know he's wrestled in the New England area a ton. And what's cool about our school and what I feel a lot of pride in is my trainer, Zachary Springate, was a direct trainee of Killer Kowalski in Massachusetts. So we can trace our lineage all the way back to Ed Strangler Lewis. Strangler Lewis trained Lou Thez, trained Killer Kowalski, trained Zachary Springate, trained me. And that's just really cool, and I've taken a lot of pride in that, especially when I got to represent at Test of Strength as the K1 Kowalski champion. I've always like really worn that on my sleeve, and I've always prioritized like staying in training. I'm coming up in October, November will be a decade at that school, and I've really like enjoyed growing a lot as a person and as a pro wrestler there.
All right, cool. Another question I love to ask, and Jack doesn't ask this: who baptized you in the ring? Who was the first one to give you that chop that you just were like, who baptized you in the ring?
It was definitely Isis Effects. So my first match with Isis, I wasn't ready, but I think you kind of have to not be ready to a certain degree. Like I had trained
exactly when you get
while.
baptized.
Yeah.
I mean, they just come down, they lay that chop on you. You're baptized now, son. You're here. So how bad was it?
It was more I'm not a tough guy. I'm not tougher than anyone else in wrestling, but that kind of stuff has never really like phased me a ton. Like you can chop me, that's fine. It kind of comes with the territory, and it was more like, okay, this is a trial by fire moment, and I was very close to getting burned on a few levels, but I was able to see it through. But I was definitely tested. That was like my second or third match, and he went out there, and I've talked to him about it since, and he wanted to test me. And at the time, I was like, oh man, this is kind of a pain in the ass. But like farther down the road, I saw what he was going for, and I appreciate him for it.
Yeah, so that was he's the one who baptized you. Wow. Did any blood vessels broken or no?
That time, no, but I've had it happen a few times. Like So everyone here is familiar with Eddie Edwards and his chops. I was in a match with him again at Test of Strength. I know I'm bringing them up a lot, but the first chop, no joke, he didn't even chop me that many times. There was a dude in that match that got it way worse than me, but the first time he chopped me, legitimately made my ears ring. He hit me so hard, like I was getting like that sound. I was like, jeez. He got me pretty good. He's definitely like the hardest person I've ever been chopped by, and I really hope no one else tries to break that record because I can take it, but we don't have to. It'll be all right.
No, I mean, you don't have to be. You've been in the business for a while now. You don't have to be baptized anymore. Have any promoter set you up with their greenhorn and told you, this, you got to bring this kid into the ring. It's his first time. He's got the talent. He's got the go-go juice.
Yeah.
You got to baptize him. Give him a shot. Give him a stiff one. And baptize him. Has that happened?
Yeah, and I won't name specifics, but there's been a few, and it's been few and far in between because, so I'm coming up on 8 years on April 5th of my first match, but I wouldn't consider myself a veteran or anything, but I've had the role of like, hey, we want to see what this guy is made of, and I've never really been about like, I'm just gonna overstep my bounds and like beat the crap out of someone. That's just not my style, but you just want to see like, do people care about this? Are people willing to take, a couple hard shots in the ring and really like work through that and come out on the other side a better wrestler? Are people really going to respond well to me, like trying to, turn up the dial and see if they can match my pace, match my intensity in the ring? And fortunately, most of the guys I've been in the ring with have, both young and old have matched that and have stepped up to the plate. And I think that's
so
important.
they actually came up and thanked you.
The guys at the time, I don't think understood what was happening, but the guy that called the shot, they're like, "Yeah, this is what we needed. Thank you."
Oh, cool! Awesome.
Yeah.
Jack, go ahead.
So here's a question I think varies for everyone, and I think a lot of wrestlers come into the profession with the idea of getting signed, but I don't think that's how everyone looks at it. We've certainly heard a variety of points of view. And again, just because I just feel like you're on such a roll, and this year 2022 is so hot for you. Do you have goals for 2022 specifically?
Yeah, I do. So it's been tough because at the beginning I'm like, oh, I don't want to limit myself. I don't want to, say anything specific and like put myself out on a ledge. But when it comes to professional goals, I want to at least appear on AEW, whether that's Dark, whether that's Dynamite, whether that's Elevation, Rampage, etc. They're a company that I'm really enjoying a lot of the stuff that they're putting across. There's a lot of people on their roster that I think very highly of, and I think that'd be a good platform to show off my skills at. So, and a lot of my peers have gotten that shot, and I'm not gonna say I can do it better than anyone specifically, but I think I have something to contribute, and I think that I can go on that platform and really like show what I'm about and be ready for that moment. So that's one of them. And then I want to do more internationally. I mentioned Great Muta earlier. I've been influenced by Japanese wrestling, like a lot of us have, and I really want to travel to Japan and honestly, like, just see if I can cut it. See if I can get like a match in front of that audience. If I can really hang with those guys, and I'm cool with whatever answer is, whether it's a yes or a no. But that's somewhere specifically that I want to be.
I don't know how much you want to pull the curtain back, but I'm always curious because a lot of the times we'll talk about the crossover between how the comic book industry and the pro wrestling industry work. You kind of come up in the indies, you try to get the attention of DC, Marvel, or Image and get work for them. And I wonder, like, if, say, for instance, that you were looking to get an opportunity with AEW, do you actually initiate reaching out? Like, is it something where you would send some matches to, or it's just, how does that work for you?
For me, it's a case-by-case scenario with each wrestler, and I think it's super specific. But from people I've talked to both directly or like things I've heard from other people, For me, and what I'm trying to do with it is I am trying to make as much noise as I can on the independents, and I really think that they'll notice. I think that company specifically has a track record, and WWE as well. If someone gets really hot, they'll at least take a look at them. They'll bring them in for something. If you could build a legitimate name on independents, I've sent stuff out,
just so they can
and
change it.
admittedly, yeah, but admittedly, I could be better about sending stuff out. But I really think that yeah, you can be an extra 1,000 times, and that's cool. And a small number of guys do get a shot off of that. But I really think like if you can make them reach out to you, if you can do something significant to where these companies are reaching out to you, you are in a much better position to one, do something that is meaningful on their product, and two, to have a little leverage in your corner. Be like, all right, cool, you want me? Maybe I can set something else up nice for myself, financially, booking wise, etc.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I appreciate you answering that.
Yeah.
And something that, I like I said, I had a chance to talk with you a little bit at the Blitzkrieg show last year, and I just thought, especially because we're talking about the pro wrestling grind and we're really pumped for your debut. And I was talking to you about how I just felt like for somebody with your style who travels to all these different companies, it must be challenging to deal with the different rings that you would encounter, where some of them are going to be more forgiving than others. And for instance, like the pro wrestling grind style, you don't necessarily have that opportunity to climb to the second rope because they've got that flat pad that runs all the way from the top turnbuckle down to the mat. So when you show up at the pro wrestling grind show, like, is it something you have to take into account with your moveset to kind of test out the ring and whatever it may offer you for pluses and minuses?
Absolutely. So I'm not as much of a high flyer springboard type of guy as a lot of other dudes, but I have a few little things I do, and I always make it a point to, when I get to a show, as long as there's time, to get out and hit the ropes, test the ropes, see how the mats are, see how I run off of it, see how many steps there are between each set of ropes, because that's a big thing people don't realize. Like if you're in a 20-foot ring as opposed to a 16-foot ring, that's an extra step. And if you're not used to that coming off the ropes, you can get yourself in some hairy situations. So yeah, I think
I was just going to ask you what kind of ring that you were trained in, 16 by 16 or 20 by 20?
I was
or
trained
12
in
by 12.
16.
You were trained in the 16?
Yep. We have a 16 and we have a 14 that we got recently. And I was trained in the 16.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And it's funny. It was just funny because our ring is very old. The ropes don't have a lot of life left in them, so you really gotta hit the ropes. The ropes don't really hit you back as hard as you hit them. And I always get a kick of the first time I bring someone from our school to a new show, and this happened at XWA specifically. And I'm like, yeah, just go in the ring, hit the ropes, see how it feels. And I always tell them it's gonna feel different. And they're so used to hitting our ropes that they hit those ropes and they take off and they take one step and they're 3/4 of the way across the ring. And I just sit in the corner and laugh. We were at
It's like hitting a rocket. Yeah. It's like
yeah. Oh, it's hilarious. So we were at Grapplers Anonymous in Buffalo, which is a school I've trained quite a bit at, in addition to IOPW in Syracuse. And they've trained guys like the Buffalo Brothers. And the first time we brought two of our guys there, they were doing a sunset flip, and this dude came off the ropes so fast. It was pretty much a Canadian destroyer he ended up hitting on the guy, because he was just flying through him. I was just sitting in the corner on the stairs just laughing my ass off.
Now, are they ropes or are they elevator cables? Or are they actual ropes?
Theirs are cables.
They're okay.
Yeah. Ours are ropes. The ones that they hit were cable.
Oof. I got to choose my words carefully here without giving anything away. I'm familiar with both, and and the ropes are a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way. Yeah.
Yep.
Ropes are.
I understand.
I almost gave some stuff away there, Jack. You got to keep me quiet. All right, keep going.
It's funny because all the different venues you go to when you're going to a new place, I just find that as a wrestler, like as a fan, I find myself clenching up sometimes because I was even at some of the grind shows. They have 2 different venues they've been at, and one of them, the ceiling was so low. I was like, how are these guys gonna do anything off the ropes? Or if you got backdrop too high, I mean, you're gonna be going through the roof, literally. And I remember when Warhorse came out at the last grind show to face Rip, he got up on the top rope and kind of looked around, almost hit his head on like the chandelier.
Yeah.
And he went and screwed one of the lights in. I was like, yeah, remember what corner that's in, because that's going to suck if whatever your moveset is, and you end up colliding with that or jumping off the ropes and, like, I don't know, cutting yourself or destroying it. I mean, that's got to be a hazard of the business.
Absolutely. And that's why I take the time to do that. And I don't want anything to happen to the guys. Usually it's just like a little flub, but I always chuckle a little bit when I see someone go out for their match and like they clearly haven't like gone out and like taken a look at the ring, and they're like, what the hell? And there's like chandeliers or like it's a drop ceiling that's like here. You can jump up and touch it. Like it's just it helps a ton to be prepared. There was one where at Test of Strength we were at this lodge venue, and we were in this outdoor thing under a pavilion, and there were chandeliers. Alec Price goes to do his entrance, and he's bouncing up on the ropes, and he like smashes into this chandelier that's hanging down. And I believe he was wrestling Brad Hollister, and Hollister starts laughing his ass off in the corner. And there's just glass everywhere, and we had to clean it up. It was so good.
That's rough.
How many times were you in a situation where you ended up having to break character and you laughed at the person you were working with?
More often than I'd like to admit. It's funny, like more and more too, the character has just become like a version of me. So if something happens in the ring where I'm cutting up and I'm laughing, I'll just play into it. At this point, like I used to be super afraid of like I have to be very serious. I can't break character. I have to Iceman, all that stuff. And the more I'm just like, I'm just gonna let all the real emotion out. And if people are weird about it, that's on them. But I've definitely laughed at quite a few people legitimately in ring, and I've had people laugh at me for dumb stuff I've done too. It's not a one-sided thing.
What was the most fun that you ever had in front of a crowd?
Oh man, this one, I had a match at ESW in Buffalo back in October, and this is like height of football season, Bills fans everywhere, and we had a match it was a Buffalo tables match. And I'm sure you've seen their tailgating practices at Bills games, and they, people are flying through all these plastic tables and just maiming themselves in the parking lot. And the promoter was like, hey, how do you feel about doing this match? I'm like, that's super weird, but it's perfect for this Buffalo audience. So I come out, I have a Gronkowski Patriots jersey, and I underestimated how much he's despised in Buffalo, and just one of the loudest boos I've ever gotten in my entire life. And I just wrestled the match with the football jersey on, and I had so much fun. It was ridiculous. Yeah.
You're speaking in tongues. I do not know these words that you speak. You're talking to a comic book and video game guy. I have no idea. Jack, what is this tongue he is speaking? I do not understand.
You should know Rob Gronkowski was in WWE for a minute.
I don't know these words. I think I know that one name because Rose liked that guy. But yeah,
I met him one night at an NXT show. He showed up in Rhode Island somewhere. I don't remember if it was Providence, maybe Warwick.
Oh, I know Rhode Island. I know Rhode Island very well. But
he showed up and picked up a bunch of the NXT wrestlers. They went to Mohegan Sun and partied after the show. So I got to meet him. He brought 2 limousines, and I was like, oh, there's Rob Gronkowski. And a bunch of people were hammering. I mean, I'm not the biggest football guy, but it was pretty funny what a big deal he was.
I'm not a football guy at all.
It was funny. I was hitting all my 3-point stance stuff, all my football moves, Heisman Trophy pose.
Wait a minute. The 3-point stance is a wrestling move. What are you talking about?
Depends who you ask. We're talking Dr. Death. We're talking Duggan. We're talking
I'm talking Dr. Death and Duggan. I'm talking Dr. Death. I am talking Duggan. I'm talking Ron Simmons. And yeah, the 3-point stance is a wrestling move. And now you're
Lewis,
talking
Lewis,
football?
do you think
What?
those guys might have played football in their background? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
I know. Oh my God! What the? I mean, what the?
Because I'm confused.
What?
Is that like a glass shatter moment for you?
uh, man, maybe. Wow.
Well, Mike, we want to make sure we give you a few minutes to promote
Yes.
upcoming appearances and
Oh,
merch.
yeah.
But before we do, I'm going to sound like a concerned parent and just tell you to please drive safely. I know you got a little bit of a journey to get to East Hampton, Mass, and there's supposed to be a bit of a snowstorm here Friday morning. So be aware, people are crazy because there hasn't been a lot of snow down here, and it's like a brand new experience for a lot of the drivers. So drive safe because there's a lot of little side streets on the way to the VFW where you're going to be performing.
Yeah, people
Thank you
in
very
East
much.
Haven, they're all stalkers.
Yes.
So, Mike, tell us first, where can we find your merch? Because you really do have like a cool array of stuff, and I think a lot of our listeners would like to get their hands on some of it.
Thank you. So first of all, if you catch me at a show, I will always have physical merch on me, whether it be T-shirts, 8x10, stickers, everything we talked about earlier. But if you are looking for stuff online, there is a bio. There's a link in my bio on Twitter and Instagram that is a T-shirt store. It's from the folks at RWA, have been really cool at helping me set up a store and put a bunch of different designs and different styles of clothing on there. So check that out. I also do have a pro wrestling tee stores as well that has like a few different little designs on there. I have some of my favorite designs are actually on there. There's a black owl shirt that is probably my favorite right now. Check those out. But the best way to get merch always is to come see me in person and talk to me, because I will have something for you.
And that leads us right into, and I know maybe some appearances haven't been announced yet, but are there certain dates and places you can announce that fans can come see?
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you're in the New England area, of course, please catch me at Pro Wrestling Grind this Friday in East Hampton. Saturday, I will be at Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling, wrestling the buttery smooth Luchador Montequia, which is a match I've wanted for a while. I think very highly of him. The weekend after, I have a big championship match. I'm in a 4-way match versus Bobby Ocean, who we mentioned earlier, versus Danny Miles, and versus Magnificent Marcos for the Test of Strength Heavyweight Championship, which is something that's been very near and dear to my heart for a while. That's going to be a big show for us. Lone Survivor, March 5th. All that info is on my social medias. And then if you are in upstate New York, you can catch me at Excite Wrestling on March 12th in Johnson City, New York. I'll be wrestling their Excite International Champion, TJ Epics, who is a young guy that's really on the rise, in my opinion. And I'm really looking forward to, again, as we mentioned earlier, giving him another test. And then on the 19th, my opponent has not been announced, but I'll be making my first defense of the Immortal Championship Wrestling Heavyweight Championship, March 19th in Schenectady for Immortal. So those are some dates I'm really looking forward to coming up.
That's awesome. Jack, please tell everyone where they can find you online to get some nice artwork, and where they can find your Patreon, and where they can find Faces and Heels each and every week.
Yeah, if you're on Patreon supporting the arts, check out Jack Purcell Patreon. It's the only place I'm really posting any of my finished artwork at this point. The newest piece for Blitzkrieg Pro featuring Kevin Nash, Lindsay Dorado, and Evil Uno, and like 7 other guys I had to draw. That's all up there. You can see the pencil art, and you can see the finish. And I post all kinds of stuff. A lot of my comic book work for DC and Marvel and all that. So Patreon, check that out. And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Jack Purcell Inc. INK. Commission list is open, so that is happening. I'm on Twitter, but I'm kind of quiet over there. And then you can find us at Faces and Heels on Facebook, where you can see us every Tuesday at 7 p.m. And then we're on Instagram at Faces and Heels Podcast.
And you can find me each and every Monday night with that Wonder Woman, Jamie Dolan, on the Angry Geek Show every Tuesday night with my brother from another mother, the one and only Jack Purcell. And you can watch me raise mayhem on the Mayhem Show every Wednesday night at 9 o'clock for the train wreck of all train wreck, as I am on the Mayhem Show. So I am Lewis, that is Jack, and that is Mike. Make sure you come and check us out. Stay safe, San Diego.